Welcome to School and Around, a podcast hosted by Branching Minds, featuring prominent leaders, subject matter experts, and thought innovators with their perspectives on the current challenges facing K 12 education. I am your host, Larissa Napolitan, a former teacher, instructional coach, and a member of the Branching Minds team, here to lead conversations and to shine a light on phenomenal educators and those that are on a mission to transform our schools and the lives of students. Maybe you've been listening for a while, or this is your first episode. If you like what you hear, would you do us a favor by rating and reviewing us on iTunes? This is a fantastic way to tell us you enjoy what we are creating. Also, if you want more MTSS resources, sign up for our weekly newsletter using the link in our show notes and check out our website for all the blogs and guides you would ever need about MTSS. Early literacy is such a vital aspect of student success. It is foundational for so much of learning that happens throughout the educational journey. And as schools have been working with new research around science of reading, we wanted to share a success story of a school working hard to build a solid literacy foundation for its students. So I'm excited to welcome today Latresha Wilson from Tuckaseegee Elementary School in North Carolina. I am just so excited to chat with you. I know at Branching Minds, we have celebrated some of your success, but I'm excited to hear all about it and how you got there. And so I'm going to just give you a little chance to introduce yourself and maybe, well, first of all, just welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And so before we begin, just to kind of get to know you a little bit, but I would love to hear, since we're talking about literacy today, do you have a favorite kids book, either from your own childhood or maybe one that from the school library that you love to go into a classroom and read to some kids?
I would say one of my favorite books to read is The Giving Tree.
Mm,
I love that book. It's one of those books that you never get old. It never gets old, right?
that's a great answer. That is that is one that I don't know if I grew up reading, but I
Yeah.
know that it is a popular one. So
Yes, yes,
that's
yes. I
a
love it. Absolutely love it.
That's a good one. Okay, so share with us a little bit about your school community. What makes your school or community make a great place to be?
So my school community, we have a very good culture here at the school. Again, one of my core values are love. And that is my first core value. And that's how we operate. We operate in love. And when I think about the parents, when I think about the community partners and people around us and the staff and students, we all exude love. You'll walk around and you'll hear myself, you'll hear the staff members telling the kids that they love them. You'll see them giving each other hugs. So I think that our school is definitely a community and it's a place where people come and they feel love. I know substitutes and people that visit our school, they say it just feels different here. Just the energy is good here. So I know truly that it is definitely the students, it's the staff, and the dedication. We have a lot of teachers and teacher assistants that have been here 18, 20 years. This is where they've been. And so it's just a very special place. And students want to do well and they want to work hard. And so when you have all of those things where people want to be here, they're loving each other and they want to work hard for each other, they want to excel and succeed. Oh, it's nothing like it.
Oh, I'm sure. So your school, you're in Charlotte, North Carolina, correct?
Yes, yes.
How many students do you have in your community?
560 are at our
Oh,
school.
okay.
Mhm.
I like to give a little context for our
Yes.
listeners out there just so, they understand kind of like what you're
Yes.
talking about. But I love that. And I think especially when you're fostering the love of learning for
Yes.
kids, making sure that they feel safe to learn
Yes.
and
Yes.
even just that they are accepted and that they
Yes.
belong there and people want them there is
Absolutely.
huge for like how much they'll be able to soak in and just provides that
Absolutely.
safe environment.
And it's funny you said that because at the front of our school, it says you belong here. It's a big sign at the beginning. So just it's funny that you actually said that because yes, students feel that they belong and they want to succeed and excel.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, okay, well, you're here today to talk specifically about some of the exceptional growth in kindergarten through third grades, students' reading scores, and so which is tremendous. And as a middle school English teacher, former middle school English teacher, I have such a like a heart for literacy in
Yes.
general. And so I would love to hear just to have you share a little bit with everyone that's listening
Mhm.
more about this accomplishment and kind of maybe set it up for us what was sort of the predecessor or the context for this accomplishment.
Yes. Well, just to tell you a little bit about the context a little bit, I am. This is my first year. I started last year in May. But of course, that's the end of the year. You're closing out the school year. But this was my official first year here as principal. Years back, maybe 13 years ago, I started as a new teacher and I became a facilitator here at this school. So coming back it was truly a blessing. So I say that to say, when I came back, of course, you look at the data as a new principal, you look at the data, you see where your students are sitting, right? And I noticed that last year, students ended the year at 45%. So 45% of our kindergarten students were at or above grade level. And that was very alarming, right? That was very alarming because I am my background started with the younger babies, right? Of course, I moved up and I started working with, but it started with younger kids. So that was my passion. That was just shocker to me. And I knew that if students were leaving kindergarten at that rate, right, it would cause a negative trajectory and it would be hard for them to pick up the
Yeah.
pace. So I knew that was definitely something that we had to prioritize. We can't just prioritize 3 through 5. We have to prioritize the foundation. So with that being said, I knew that there was something that needed to be done. So just really working with the teachers, looking at mindset shifts, looking at what we were actually doing, looking to make sure the curriculum aligned with what our students needed. And if there were spaces where we had to go a little bit faster because we were going a little bit slow and our students were ready for it, then that's what we needed to do. We would have to put different systems in place, right, to provide additional resources for students so that not only were they getting it in class, we also had additional support to push in to give them additional resources. So, with that being said, we did that work. We pushed, we provided scaffolds. We had the wraparound approach where we were using our special area teachers. So we had people that taught music, right, coming in and supporting with just reading, sitting alongside of them, students, and reading and practicing sounds. And so, with doing that work and being very intentional, knowing student by student what they needed to be successful, and again, pushing them while providing that support, we were able to, particularly in kindergarten, go from about 10% at the beginning of the year with students at or above grade level to 95%, which was totally different, right? From the year before, which 45% were at grade
Yeah.
level.
Yeah. I mean, that is tremendous because it really, I mean, you're very right in that those foundational skills set a student up for
Yes.
success, right? There's that statistic about like by third grade, if students have not reached
Yes.
grade level as far as
Yes.
reading goes, like that sets them on a
It
trajectory,
does.
for the rest of their
Absolutely.
educational journey. And so
Absolutely.
I think that even just like that very focused work, I
Yes.
would love for you to tell me more about just using your like specials or elective
Mhm.
teachers in this kind of context. Because I'm sure that there's people listening going, huh, I wonder how
Mhm.
like how that worked out and
Yes.
what you did to sort of bring people along in this journey.
Right. Well, we know here at Tuckaseegee, we are family. And I set the tone to where everyone feels they're a part of these goals that we have, right? And so knowing that it's not only the teacher's responsibility, but we're a team. And so teachers not only see that they're helping the students, they also care about their colleagues to where they want to help their colleagues as well. Right. So you have that different line there where it's kind of like I'm helping my colleague and I'm helping the students. So when I introduced it to them, I said, well, we need your support, right? You have blocks of time in your schedule where I don't want to just throw you in a classroom to just say, do something because you have extra time, right? I want to make it meaningful. I want to make it to where you are. in the work of making sure that we meet our goals. And I need you. This is what I need for you to do. So not only do I need for you to incorporate some sight words and incorporate things literacy based during your specials, because that was an expectation as well. How are we incorporating literacy, sight words, themes in special area classes? But when you don't have a class, I need you to step out. Here is a reading passage. Here are some sight words. These are the students. Go in and help them and support them.
Mm.
And, of course, it was kind of like, oh, I know that they might give me pushback, but they didn't. And instead, they actually sent me an email and said, I really appreciate how you saw that we could be a help to the students. And we enjoy even having those relationships and helping teachers and the student. So,
Well, yeah, I that's what I at first when you mentioned it, that's what I
mhm,
thought of like,
mhm,
"Oh, what an amazing way to build relationships with
mhm,
those students."
mhm,
To have your music teacher I mean,
mhm.
because I think about kids that love music class or PE,
Right,
and
right,
their PE teacher comes in to help
right,
them read with their reading, how exciting that is and how that
right.
much that builds and, like, provides that community feel, for
Yes.
those students.
Yes, yes, yes. And again, it helped because they they see themselves. A lot of times people may see special area as, okay, you just kind of go in there and play, it's a special. But to see them as professionals invested in this work that we're doing to get our school to where it needs to be, that is on a different level. And they go to specials and they go to PEC, but they know the student. So, like you said, not only that, there was even some times where I said, okay, with these groups of students, they kind of give up when things are hard. So I need your mentorship as well, right? I need you to
Mm.
encourage them. I need you to talk about attendance with them. Give them an incentive that maybe if they're here every single day, they may can come and spend an additional few minutes with you, and do something in PE with you. So all of those types of things contribute to that positive culture and that desire that everyone is vested to make sure that our kids are getting what they need to learn.
Oh, wow. I love what you said about sort of the coaching and mentoring. So, tell me a little bit about like how you shaped some of those groups. Was that sort of based on like teacher input or,
Yes.
do you have sort of a meeting to kind of break apart some of those groups?
Yes, so we are, I know it's cliche, but we are a data-driven school. So we look at students' data all the times. So my coaches know student data, my teachers know their data inside and out, and we're tracking that data each week to see where students are because we have to be intentional about this work. So with that being said, it was teacher judgment as it relates to we're looking at this data. These are the students that are performing here, these are the students that are performing there, and so forth. This is what they need. And then teachers, again, are also, well, I think this student would need additional work with X, Y, and Z. So, yes, we would get together as a team, create that list, create what it is that they need, and then we create those resources. This is what we can give. And then we provide a training for them. So we don't just say, here, go for it. During their PLCs, we're like, hey, this is the reading passage. You come in, this is the folder. You take their attendance, you read with them, you do the sight words, you track how many. Like, so it's an intentional process, and we coach the teachers with it as well, the special area teachers with it as well, and the TAs. So it's not just special area teachers, our TAs, our ESL teachers, all of those. So yeah, so we do look at the data and we determine kids based on different levels what they need, and if they're not seeing anyone. So you may have a teacher that sees the ESL teacher, that sees the TD teacher, that sees this teacher, but then you have this group that they may not get that additional support. They don't fall under the TD window. They don't fall under EC. They don't fall under ML. So those are the ones we kind of target to say, you don't necessarily get additional, so we're going to give you additional.
Well, it's sort of taking that MTSS framework of like if they're not
Yes,
receiving services for that skill or
correct.
that kind of area, sort of tiering those students.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can imagine that this process isn't without its challenges. Maybe would
Yes.
you share with our audience just a little bit about maybe some of the challenges that you encountered in this process and maybe how did you pivot to address those?
Um, I think some of the challenges that we saw would be, as you know, in education in a classroom, any given classroom, you're going to have multiple levels, right? You're going to have multiple levels, and then you're also going to have multiple skill set of teachers, right?
Yeah.
Then you have curriculum, but then you have curriculum that it may need to be shifted based on where students are or what they need.
Hmm.
So with all of those things, right, you have to decide, what are we going to use? You have to be able to support teachers, because we had um, a couple of new teachers on certain grade levels that they may not have been necessarily quick to pivot. They haven't done it that this works, so
Yeah.
long. So it was a little difficult, right, to say, this is the curriculum. However, my kids need something else. So where am I going to get that something else,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
being able to provide that support to multiple people, to multiple students, to where it's not overwhelming, to where they
Hmm.
don't get discouraged when the data is not responding, to when we have to shift because it's not working. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know that's kind of a lot, but it's kind of the nuances in, when you have so many different needs and you want to do it right, you have to be able to be open to shifting,
Hmm.
um, knowing where those shifts happen. And then myself and my coaches, we have to coach
Yeah.
teachers
Yeah.
to shift.
Yeah. Well, and that's hard. Maybe even I think newer teachers
Yes.
not having the repertoire or the tools in their
Correct.
toolbox to
Correct.
shift
Correct.
it in the yeah. I think that's kind of what you're saying is
Yes.
just that,
Correct.
and I agree. I think that's sometimes because I think about veteran teachers who've
Yeah.
seen a lot of different kinds of curriculum,
Right.
who've encountered a lot of different kind of
Exactly.
students, and they are able to like pull
Exactly.
things out of their hat. And I'm like,
Right.
how did you even? They're like, oh, I
That
did this
part.
10 years ago.
Correct.
But we're like new teachers just don't have that necessarily, and
Absolutely.
it's easier to follow very like
Correct.
rigid plans
Correct.
because that pivot. And I also think it
Yes.
just depends on the teacher and the skill,
Yes. Right.
their own skill set, because I
And
just
they're
think
comfortable.
every teacher is different in that way.
Correct. And their comfort level, right? Because when you
Yes.
think about small groups, that's putting kids in groups. So a lot of teachers, they want to do whole group because they have that control. But when you
Mhm.
have so many different levels, you have to be able to give this group something that they need, that group something they need, that group something they need, while you're teaching a group. And you have to be able to trust and have that wickedness to be able to monitor, right? To be able
Yeah.
to keep people on task. And what are their accountability pieces to make sure that when I'm not with them, they're still learning. So that's another tricky piece, right, that we have to work through.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot.
Well, I love that you use the word with itness, because I remember I had a mentor a long time ago that talked about it was when I was coaching teachers, and she
Hmm.
just talked about some teachers just have that with
Yes.
itness, like
Yes.
it's kind of ingrained in who they are.
Yes.
And then some of them it takes them a while to
Yes.
develop that, just
Right.
because of everyone comes into your teacher prep program and student
Right.
teaching with a different skill set. So
Right.
I
Right.
love that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, there's a couple of things I wanted to ask a little bit more about.
Hmm.
You talked about coaching and mentoring those teachers. What did that look like? What kind of conversations or even training and resources did you have with those teachers that when maybe were struggling to pivot in how they delivered the curriculum for their students?
So I think I'll say kind of like a secret sauce, which is really not the secret sauce, but we have a coaching caseload model here. And what that means is every single teacher has a coach from the administrative team. So that coach is their person. So anything that I have a problem with, struggling with, reviewing my report cards, walking in for a little observation and need to get feedback, your person is your coach. That right there helps us to kind of alleviate so many different pieces of feedback, right? So, with that being said, each teacher has a coach, which is typically an MCL or a dean of students or a principal, assistant principal, and that person walks with that person through the process. So any questions they may have, they have that one person, that coach, to come in, provide them feedback, coach them. My MCLs do a great job of being inside of the classrooms, doing the work beside them. It's not like I'm just telling you, but I'm doing the work beside you. I have a group, you have a group, and I'm actually helping you. So that really helps the process go a little bit more smoother because you don't have to wait until a PLC meeting, or you don't have to feel that you are asking questions or being coached and trained all the time in a meeting setting.
Mhm.
It's that one-on-one meeting that's locked in every single week with that teacher, that they meet with their coach and they talk about those types of things and they troubleshoot those types of things.
I
So,
love that. Can
yeah,
you what does MCL stand for?
a MCL, a multicultural leader, and that's a program. It's called Success by Design here in our district, and they get paid additional money, but they're coaches and they're leaders for people.
Mhm. Okay.
So it used to be in my day where we had one literacy facilitator, really, probably in your day, you had one literacy facilitator, maybe a math facilitator, and that covered the whole school.
Yeah.
Now we have multiple ones. So I have a person for K1, two, two, three, 4, 5, and that just kind of makes things a little bit more targeted. But that has truly helped.
I love that coaching model. I was an instructional coach in a
Yes,
middle school for like 4 years, and the amount of teachers that I had on my like to
correct,
coach was a
correct.
lot. I love that model, sort of like taking that leadership
Yes,
perspective as sort of coaching. I'm a
yes.
big proponent. I'm a big fan of that. And
Oh,
so
yes.
actually I this is great. This kind of transitions of like this questions. We have so many leaders that listen to this podcast, and I would love for you to talk a little bit more about some leadership tips that you have for some like a big push like this or big initiative. You have any other secret sauces that you want to share with for
Yes,
these kind of
well,
things?
I would say, like I said, that's one thing. My leadership team is the secret sauce. Creating, first of all, making sure that your leaders move in love. I always say that because I think that when people have that aura about themselves, or they have a willingness that I want to see you succeed, then teachers want to do. They build that trust and they want to do for them. And so I really take a lot of work in building my coaches. And I tell them they're like the little principals, right? Because they each kind of have like a grade level, and that you're in charge of them, right? I'm going to coach you. I'm going to talk to us about the expectations of the school and what I want, right? We're going to talk about these things together, but then you execute that. What does that look like? Because this is a group of people that they trust you, that you work so closely with. They're not intimidated by you or anything like that. But it presses the work forward, right? Of course, I'm there if I need to have difficult conversations. I'm there. I still coach and I still give feedback, but that's their person, right? And so creating that system in place, I think, helps to push the work farther, and it helps to again just build that trust. So that's of course, one of my definitely a secret sauce that I have. Um, and then again, just walkthroughs. So that's something that we do. It's on a form. I have school priorities. I had 4 of them this year. That's what we focused on. And I'll give you an example. My school priorities were data driven instruction and independent practice, small group instruction, um, academic monitoring, and then Gleam. And so, meaning everything that we did focused around those priorities so that a teacher is not getting so many different priorities. We know if you get those things right and we coach you around those things, it's going to have good results for kids. So, just making through that, even our walkthrough forms were based on those things so that, again, you don't get an abundance of feedback
Mhm.
of multiple things that you're overwhelmed about. So I think that was definitely a secret sauce. And then setting goals, setting high goals. Like I remember my facilitators, when I came to the school, I said, well, I'm trying to get us to this and that. These are our goals. And she said, Wilson, where'd you get those from? I said, this is where we need to be. She said, well, I don't know if we have those. I said, we're going to find them from somewhere. And we did. She said, well, where are we going to find them? I don't know. Let's look at the data. We're going to find them from somewhere. And we absolutely did. Did we make every single goal? Absolutely not. But most of them we absolutely set. We did. We
Yeah.
made them.
Well, and even I think having those high expectations, right?
Yes,
Like I think, there's a lot of research about how high expectations for learners is
absolutely.
better than those, lowering the bar. And I think that like you're like,
Absolutely.
that these kids can do it and then they can learn. And
Right.
so setting the bar high, and that
Yeah.
sets this I think an air or like an environment of confidence in
Yes,
their learning abilities and their
that.
potential.
Yes. Yep. And focusing on self efficacy for kids, like believing that they could, because sometimes, I think kids may not think that they can, right? And so we have that and we build that confidence to say, you can do this. And once they started achieving it, it was like, whoa, yeah, I can. Oh, and then that they wanted to keep going, right? And even the teachers. Like I think some, not to say it probably shocked them, but sometimes you set goals and you're like, really, this kind of has never really, this has never happened. Like if you look at trajectory, this kind of has never happened. But once it happens, it's like, and it just fuels them and they want it even
Mhm.
more. So it's
Yeah.
really fun
Like
to see.
that success fueling further success, I think is, I someone recently said in an interview just that idea about once the teachers see that growth is possible, that it motivates them
That
to keep
it
working
does.
harder
It
and
does.
it builds that momentum.
It does.
And I think that for when you think about school improvement or even just setting the big goals, I think that we underestimate the power of momentum and
Yes.
how that can help
Yes.
move schools forward and move out of that stuck zone, and I think it is
Absolutely.
starting with that high expectation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And once you get there, you see the trajectory changes over years, right? So, with us having the growth that we had, the next year is going to be even better. And then you'll continue, you'll see the work, right? So, I
Yeah.
think that once we start seeing that, we're like, oh, this really, this is possible. Oh, it is possible. Because if you look, thinking about the scores, and I just kind of look, and of course, just kind of looking across the schools and the learning communities, the scores don't typically look like when I say, Title One schools. A lot of times, again, that's the stereotype you have, meaning sometimes maybe your Title One schools don't score as high as maybe your affluent schools, but our data is getting up there to where it's up there, and so that's always exciting to see how the trajectory and the stereotypes are shattered when it comes
Mhm.
to Title One school.
Yeah. Well, and I think about those students,
Yeah,
how in a single year they could change the trajectory of their
in a single
educational
year,
journey,
a
and
single
many of them their lives, I think, as well.
yes, 100%.
100%. Okay. Well, I could probably ask you 50 more questions about this. I love hearing sort of your leadership mindset and just how you and I think even just I can tell that sort of the culture and the core
Yeah,
values that you
yeah,
mentioned before. And speaking of next steps,
yes.
what does next year look like? What kind of how much higher is your goal?
Oh, well, it'll probably be high, just as this year. It really will be. I think last year I set about a 10-point goal. In some places, a 20-point goal, and we actually met them and surpassed them. So it will be high again because I think that we have more traction to make. So I would probably again we have to look at them. Um, and I said this year, again, coming in last year, I was kind of looking at the data and knowing where we needed to be and knowing that, okay, coming in, let me set these goals. Let me, set the trajectory. This year, I am going to work with my teams on setting those goals so that they're more involved in the process, right? Since we've gotten traction. However, I want to make sure that they understand that if they're making goals that are probably lower than, a certain number that I have, I'm going to encourage them. We have to make them higher because we're not where we need to be in order to get us to where we need to be. So goals will definitely be higher. Our core values, of course, are going to stay the same because that's who we are. We love, we learn, we lead. That's who we are. And our priorities will stay similar, but we'll refine them. So when I
Mm,
talked about implementing TD strategies, we're going to go to more of the thought processes and how are we making sure when we walk in that kids are digging deeper, that their thinking is going deeper versus the act of we're going to use this TD strategy to grow kids and so forth. So we're going to keep them similar as well because I truly believe that when I thought about it, we thought about these um, priorities, they were what kids needed to be successful. So we're not going all over the place. We're getting deeper and we're going deeper into what we've started. And
mm,
so that's where we are for next year. But I'm really looking so forward to all of the hard work, right? Because being a new principal, of course, is going to be a little difficult, right? It's going to be
mhm,
difficult for staff to adjust. I mean, there's
mhm.
with anybody new, you have to adjust to new leadership, you have to adjust to new standards, expectations, all of those things. And I'm kind of a little woo-hoo. So I think now they know, they're excited about it. They know what to expect.
Yeah,
So it makes things a little bit more, and then they've seen the success. So I'm just excited to now continue the momentum, as you said, continue the momentum and just get better and better and grow and grow and grow our students and our school community.
that's amazing. Well, I love hearing about your success, and I think a lot of our listeners will appreciate just hearing sort of some of your ideas and your approaches to this work. And so, and if no one's told you today, thank you for all the hard work you do for your students and your staff.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for even taking the time to talk to me today and just allow me to just share some of the successes that we had here at Tuckaseegee. Anytime students are growing and they're winning, it's a win for everyone. It's a win for the world. So it's just so exciting to see.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much, Larissa. Have a great one.
Thanks for listening to Schoolin' Around, a podcast hosted by Branching Minds. Go ahead and subscribe to our feed wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget, if you are enjoying our content, would you do us a favor and rate and review our podcast on iTunes? This helps others find our podcast and lets us know how much you love what we're creating. Branching Minds is an educational technology company using learning sciences and technology to help districts effectively personalize learning through MTSS. To learn more about us, check out our website, branchingminds.com, or follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn at Branching Minds.